And I just want to say welcome to everyone. This is our first ever Architect Engage and Learn. So it's our new name for our webinar series and actually all of our events, AR Engage. And I promise you it'll be just as informative and hopefully fun as always. Today, we're going to be talking about powering up your intelligence hub. We'll have a few tips and tricks for you to talk about our dashboard and our Analyst Impact Monitor. As we move along, I do recommend that maybe you move with us, and we'll make sure that the most important parts we give you fair warning so you know like this is something to remember. So today I'm joined by Trish Valadares, who's going to be helping us make sure all of our questions get answered. And Eric Nomani and I will be tag teaming a little bit for showing you our tips and tricks and making your way to being a power user when it comes to these two things today. So with that being said, Eric, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, good to see everybody. Some new faces as well. So always nice to reconnect. This is the first one we're doing here. I'm gonna share my screen and we'll go through the dashboard and mastering and best practices and all that good stuff. All right, so the kind of gist of today's call is I think a lot of people may be using the dashboard or different tiles to kind of track things that have already happened, but we're really kind of trying to look at the dashboard and bring us valuable information that's important to, your specific analyst universe. So these should be things that are kind of providing clear, actionable metrics. Yes, we're tracking meeting numbers, but we also want to see and how we're driving those kind of meaningful engagements and impacting the program. Two critical questions, maybe not only kind of what have I done, but also what I should be doing next.
So
So we're going to
Eric,
take it.
before
Yes.
you get too far into your sort of how-tos, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, yeah, of course.
All right. So the question is,
Oh, I
did
totally
you
forgot about the
know
poll.
that you
Thank you.
can set your goals and track progress right on your dashboard? Thanks for those of you that said, "Oh, wow, really?" I love that. Thanks for playing along. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and, ooh, I like that. Yes. And I'm going to end the poll, share the results. It seems like a number of people were really surprised about this. And I got to say, I was too. We realized that there is a little fun way that we can do this. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Eric go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually not so surprised. I think a lot of people tend to think of these tiles like, again, what have we done? But this is a really great kind of webinar and showing us how we can use this to kind of plan out and look forward and kind of how we're meeting our goals as well. So the first kind of two tiles I like to look at on the left here, I apologize, you're not seeing everything, but it's plan touches. So when we talk about plan touches, I'll just open this up. I'm sure you all can figure out the different filters, but I'm just looking at my interactions in the future, and my status is set to either scheduled or to be scheduled. So one of the best practices within Architect, we always say, is getting things into Architect ahead of time, whether they're already in the calendar or maybe things that you want to plan out for the future. So when we look at this, we see, oh, we have 7 planned touches. And if I were to go into my interactions page, you'll see in here on the right, I have my planned interactions filter, and I can see everything that's to be scheduled, already scheduled, but maybe not yet completed. There may be some keen eyes out in the crowd, and you're wondering, Eric, I don't have this status column or this status field within my interactions. How are you getting these to be scheduled kind of things in here? Great question. These are custom fields that we set up within our interactions page to be able to make more use and more value of those tiles. So again, we kind of have our basic fields, but if there's anything that we want to track in the future or currently, that's why we use our custom field. And this one is status. So when I go back to my main screen, all of this is kind of based off of the status of those interactions and things coming up. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'll come back to the tile, but just so you know, we also have the calendar here that is also showing me all my interactions, and we'll go into more detail in a second. So we have all our planned stuff. We know what's going on, but sometimes things may fall through the cracks. And I want to kind of keep that front and center. Maybe I want to keep my team honest. Maybe I just want to say, hey, if something hasn't happened, do we need to get on it, or is there a reason why it hasn't happened? This overdue engagements is my second tile in here. And it's basically showing me just year to date. So anything that's in the past, but not, forward yet, and a status of to be scheduled or scheduled. So when we look at this and it's year to date and the time has passed, and I'll show you this in the grid, but it gives me a quick view and to say, hey, these were things that were planned. They haven't been completed yet. Now they're overdue, right? And if we go into our grid, we have our overdue view, and we can see exactly those two interactions, and they're still in the scheduled status. So again, if I wanted to more detail, I can click in and see should this be just changed to completed, or is there kind of another reason as to what's going on here? I see something in the chat. I don't know, Chris, are there any questions yet or anything
That
that,
was just me giving a shout out to Holly saying hi, because her and I
hey,
have
Holly.
these conversations a lot. So
Yeah, and we've been having a lot of conversations since we updated the dashboard about kind of how we track, what's important to track. I think one of the biggest factors in here is saying, okay, not just kind of what we've done, what's coming up, but what's important, maybe certain goals or benchmarks that we're trying to achieve, right, within the system. So I'm going to move on to this third widget, front and center, and I'm going to pretend in my AR team here for this demo that this year we're trying to make a big push to capture insights. So I have this tile right here. All it's saying is any insight this year. We're almost in March. I only have 2 insights within the system, but I know that my team has been managing all those kind of interactions with the analysts, and I know there's probably more than 2 insights that we've been able to kind of gather. So it tells me, do we need to maybe kind of say, hey, we need to make sure we're adding insights to our interactions. We need to make sure we're adding those sentiments. It's really kind of an opportunity, if it's lower than we think it is, to say, hey, do we need to re-engage or reassess our strategy around insights and sentiment? There's a really great presentation. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but Brandon Davis from Logic Monitor had a great presentation on our 2024 user forum regarding forging those partnerships with the industry analysts and using those insights within Architect. I believe we're putting the link up in the chat. So please, when you have some time, check that out. It's gotten great reviews and it's really, really good information. All right. The next tile I'm going to talk about, we get a lot of questions and comments around sales enablement, strategic impact. You'll notice this tile here, sorry if the text is kind of getting lost. This is a goal and it says talk to sales once a month. So not only am I looking at my activity, but I'm also looking at the goals for me or maybe my team. And I'm saying, okay, we have a goal of once a month. I see a 1 in here, so that's been completed. But this is going into, and I'll bring it up again in, sorry, sales enablement. And you'll see my view here, sales enablement, scheduled, sales kickoff, AR workshop. This is a very important topic in AR. Again, how do we kind of align the AR team and the goals, the activities with the sales strategy? How do we become that trusted partner of the sales team, that source of information? We have another reference here to User Forum 2024. Sarah Robin at the trade desk did an amazing job showing the way that she relates the activity, the impact on the sales of the company and the products. So please check that out. I'm not doing it justice by kind of going through this really quickly, but it's really valuable and great information. And you really kind of, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Eric. I just wanted to go back to the dashboard for a second. We had a really timely question of like, did we rename the tile? And how do we do
Mm-hmm.
that? And if you blinked or, looked away for a second, you could easily had missed this. And the widget tile actually is a full text box. You just click the edit and you can really name it anything you want. What's nice about it is you can type in what your goal is, you can type in a descriptor of what it's looking at, and then we set the filters to define whatever it is that we're tracking against or tracking for. And that was a big aha moment for us recently is like, hey, this could be really informative and make sure that every time you're logging into Architect, these tiles are a way for you to quickly see like, am I doing what I said I was going to do, or am I not following up on something?
Yeah, thank you. And really kind of keeping the team honest, right? So these were tiles that we thought, were useful and valuable and kind of thinking maybe outside the box to say, hey, typically people are tracking number of interactions or maybe by Gartner or whatever, but let's see if we can, make this more valuable and show forward coming stuff as well as are we hitting goals and benchmarks for the month, the quarter, whatever it may be.
And I really love the sort of sales piece. I know we're all thinking about how are we impacting our business and building frameworks to engage with those different stakeholders and helping drive the expansion of your companies and your solutions. And so, I see lots of you are tracking when you're interacting with sales and spending a lot of time making sure they know how to use your major evaluations or when there's a great quote, helping you drive in that differentiation. So let's keep it top of mind. Let's build it right onto our dashboard to make sure that we're staying relevant to our partners in our organization.
Yeah, and thank you, Crystal. A couple added points to that. Some practical implementation tips for this, and kind of getting in front of your sales team, becoming their partner. Maybe do a monthly newsletter summarizing, key engagements or insights that you've gotten from those analysts. Maybe participation in sales kickoffs where you can bridge that gap between sales feedback and the analyst insights. So just a couple kind of best practices, but definitely check out that presentation. All right, I'm going to go back to, are there any questions or shall we keep going?
You're doing great. I have no more questions for now.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to click back into the dashboard. A couple other important widgets. We talked about the calendar kind of quickly. I do have this filter set to basically showing all interactions. But again, if you wanted to just show your specific interactions, things that have coming up in the future, things like that, this is fully customizable. And they're also movable. So if I don't want the calendar at the top, I can drag it down the page, move it below other widgets, things like that. You may know this already. If you want to see more detail of something in the calendar, just click into it. You'll get right to that interaction if you need to make an edit or view more information. Same thing if you need to add, just click into an empty date and you can go ahead and add that interaction right there. Okay, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. We have our top influencers widget in here. This is really meant to bring in information on the influencers that you're following or your top influencers. I have this set to specific influencers, and you can do specific names. We have Dan Newman, Liz Miller, Steve Dickens for this demo, but you may want to do a specific analyst group if you have a tier one or a group that you're following. And this is really meant to just bring you that quick view into, do we have our interactions going for them? Do we have any mentions? We can quickly view, are they mentioning our company or any specific keywords that we may be interested in? And if I were to click into here, again, we would just view that premium content, and you'll see it's already filtered for Steve. We have these particular mentions kind of finding OpenAI, but obviously for you, you would set it up for your specific name or a specific topic.
I just want to highlight something right here for everyone that hasn't dived into this top influencers widget. You may, if you haven't edited this yet, it's actually defaulted just to I think the Power 100. So if you
Mm-hmm.
look at this and you're like, whose top influencers are these? It's kind of like the top across the database. So I really suggest that you open that browser right now, click that little filter, and either select your influencer group or just go ahead and type in your, top 10 or something really quickly. And that's going to make sure that you have that laser sharp view into your core analysts waiting for you right there on that top influencers, because we want to make sure they're your top influencers and not just the, broad strokes database. And actually, we do have a question. What is the difference between the Power 100 and the influencer score? Jennifer, this is a great question. So the Power 100 is ranking from 1 to the end. And then the influencer score is actually the numeric value of their interaction ranking plus publication ranking. So it gets kind of mathy. And they're essentially the same thing. It's just one is looking at it from one angle and the other is looking at it from another. I hope that makes sense.
All righty.
Right.
Couple more things in here, and then I will hand this over to Crystal. At the bottom of my dashboard, I also have the reports widget turned on. This is going to be really, again, tracking things that are important to us, tracking things that may be coming up in the future, whatever is important. In this example, I have it preloaded to show my interaction type, and this is kind of showing me an interaction summary. If this is too small, I apologize. I'll make it a little bigger. But now I can see, am I staying on top of my sales enablement activities? Am I staying on top of those kickoffs? How about our inquiries for the year, right? And to maybe go a little deeper, in addition, I can also say, well, maybe I want to see this by a specific firm. I know some of us obviously we're paying for those kind of Gartner inquiries. Are we making sure we're using those hours, right? So if I want to come in here and say just within here, I want to see maybe Gartner. Where am I? Let's try that again. All right, I apologize. It looks like I'm having a little
Page or
snafu.
something.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
love live demos,
Yep.
but I
So
promise
you
you.
wanted to use the filters and you're like, hey, I don't just want to flip this by this little drop down right here. I want to do some further drilling. There are filters right here. It looks like Eric's page is
Here we go.
misbehaving. Oh, yeah,
Found
I think
another
it's
way
a
to do
splash
it.
page
Yep.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly, Crystal. So I was just looking at my inquiries now, and I can see Gartner for the year. We have one. If that's expected, great. But again, if our goal is to be, maximizing those hours that we've paid for, this is a quick view to say, hey, we need to jump on that particular piece.
I always say this is the least exciting, but one of the most valuable types of reports you can do to just make sure that we're fully managing our contracts and using those things that we're paying for. Eric, can you go back to the top influencers? It seems like
Whoa.
we want to show how to dial this in.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sarah, not to call you out, sorry, but to anyone that, again, may have blinked because it's really easy to get this done, you click the little funnel, and that's going to give you a bunch of reporting options. The two things that I love the most is either name, so that means the name of your influencer, and then you'll grab the operator is one of, that's kind of important because then you can just like let your fingers start typing in really quickly. And you can just type in, if you have 10 that are your BFFs, you can just grab them in there really quickly. If you're like, oh, I already have my tier one list, you can grab an influencer group instead.
Oh, there we go.
And then you can say is, and then click into where it says value, and then grab a group, and then click save, and that's going to grab your thing. This is actually a really good tip that Melissa just said is there is a filter called remove influencer in transit. So what Eric can do is do and then firm. Oh, yeah, you could do that. Influencer in transit is false, right? So
Or
what
you're right. It maybe do it easier to do firm is
I mean,
not
this works as
influencer in
well, yeah.
transit.
So what this means is like if you have someone that you're kind of saving in your analyst group because they were part of your analyst group in the beginning of the year, but maybe you know that they're probably going to come back and they're taking a little hiatus and you don't want to quite move them, but you don't need them in all of your sort of reports and stuff. You can just say like, hey, don't show influencer in transit. And right here are two ways that you could do that. You could say firm is not influencer in transit, or you could say influencer in transit is false. So if you just said Crystal, you totally confused me. Let's talk because influencer in transit, for those of you that didn't know, means that an analyst was once an analyst and maybe now they're back on the vendor side, or maybe they haven't landed at their new place, or some other thing that means they're not actively writing research. That's really the key part is an influencer in transit means they are not actively writing research. Okay. Eric, there's one other thing that I think is really important because I think everyone that knows me knows I'm a little bit particular about the way things are set up and I like things the way I like them. So, can you show everyone on the call how you can remove things, you can move them around? So, maybe you're like, I don't need a calendar in Architect. I love my calendar in my mail client. Get this out of my view. It's really easy to remove the calendar button, delete widget.
Delete widget, yeah. And this goes for all of our widgets or our tiles at the top. These are all kind of by default. If you don't want 5 at the top, again, just click in at the bottom of these. There will be a delete. And then, as Crystal said, if I don't want the calendar, or maybe I think, hey, top influencers, I don't need to keep track of this right now, delete, and I can just have my report and my calendar. If you want the report on top, I can drag and drop up here. Let's see, I can drag and drop up here and move that. And I can also move things to the left or right. So maybe I want my notifications on the right. We can do that as well. And anything that you delete, don't worry. If you ever want to put it back in, add widget, and then it'll show you which ones are available to add. Yep,
The
good
other
call.
thing is you can create quick links as well on this dashboard. So you want to
Ah,
show that's yeah, kind of a neat one to be able to do as well.
and this can be a link out to your SharePoint, or it can be a link to another architect page if you just want to link to like premium content if you're always in there. Really up to you.
Yeah,
All
or
right.
even a link to like the briefing book or your favorite report as well. One other thing, can we move around the tiles? Because again, you know me, I'm a little bit OCD
Mhm.
and I like to see things in a certain way.
Maybe I want to see my sales enablement goals first or my insights. Yep, 100% movable. Just drag and drop. And again, if you don't need, I can come in here, delete.
Okay, so one of the most important things I think on the dashboard is actually the notifications. So if there was any time to pop open that browser and follow along, it would be right now. I'll pause because Eric is going to show us how to make sure that you are always on top of what is going on in your analyst universe in terms of what's getting published.
Yeah, so big kind of requests in the past for getting notifications, whether it's within Architect, whether it's in email, um, whether it's just with specific analysts or maybe mentions of a topical keyword. We do have the notifications turned on here. And at the top right of your screen, you have this little notifications widget here that will allow you to set all your information within manage notifications. Um, this will take a second to load because we probably have a lot of data in here, but we can set this for individual influencers, right? And we can kind of give those names and say, I just want to see when they're putting out a quote, a research piece. We can follow whole groups if we have a tier one or a specific coverage group. And then within the coverages tab, we can also specify, do I want to get notified when my company or maybe another company or a specific keyword is mentioned? So really a nice way to kind of dial in what's important to you and then decide, do I want to be notified just within Architect or do I want to also get notified within email or maybe even Slack? And I know we talk about notifications a lot. One of the kind of stories I'll share is that one of our users, I'm sure many of you know this person, I'm not going to say the name, but they are very in tune with the notifications and they will look up those kind of mentions and say, hey, there's been a recently published quote by a specific analyst, and that particular user is reaching out to those analysts and using these mentions as kind of an informal way to get an insightful conversation with that analyst. And it may not be a formal inquiry, a formal kind of meeting, but it's a way for that user to say, hey, I saw you put this quote out, or I saw you put this mention out. Let me kind of shout out to you and, kind of hook up without having the need for that formal meeting. So a nice way to use the notifications that way. And I'm sure there's plenty other of great ways you guys are using it. I'm still learning. So if anyone has any kind of, thoughtful ways that they're using notifications, feel free to let us know as well. And I think talking about the mentions and talking about the notifications, this is what kind of Crystal is going to show you next is how to dive into those and also how to pull out insights from those mentions.
That was a great segue. I just want to echo something that Melissa said in the chat. Um, love the tactic that because relationships rule in AR, and it's so true. And in fact, the one person that had shared this story with us had said that oftentimes the analysts don't even know how they're getting quoted or where or when. So I found that to be kind of interesting. So it almost became like a value add to building a really type partnership with the analyst and showing that, the AR person was really invested in growing that relationship. So I love that example and I thought it was brilliant and I hope that you all can find some value out of that as well. So our next bit here, I'm going to, of course, kick off by asking a quick question. And the question is, have you engaged with AIM yet? So AIM is our Analyst Impact Monitor. And just curious if you have, it's something that released towards the end of, was it the end of last year or was it beginning of this year? It was quite recent, so don't worry, you're not behind the eight ball if you say no, it's fine. But it is probably one of my most favorite parts of Architect right now. And I'll even share some really interesting experience that I have had working with a client. So I'll give you just a couple minutes since folks are still responding. And all right, let's go ahead and end the poll, share the results. So it looks like a few of you have and quite a few of you haven't. So that's okay. That's why we're here today. And hopefully you feel like ARInsights will give you a nice little present today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So, for this part of our conversation today, I want you to know that I went to content and then impact monitor, right? So from here, for those of you that log in and you're like, whoa, mine does not look like that. You've got a lot of stuff. Don't worry. What I did is I hit the edit button and I just entered in some additional vendors, or I could also put in uh, a topic. And I'm going to put this topic in for just one moment, and then I'm going to take it out because it kind of skews things. So I wanted to grab some big vendors and some big topics. So obviously artificial intelligence, it's like, okay, Crystal, that's super broad. You just turned the scale all the way up. But I just wanted you to know that you can actually dig in to see how analysts are mentioning a specific topic as well. And Eric, can you keep me honest? We can have 5 vendors or 5 coverages in there.
Yeah,
A
exactly. Up to
little
5.
Awesome. A little pro tip. If you're typing and nothing pops up and you're seeing no data, it's probably not you, it may be us. So just pop in down here and send us a quick message and say, I'm working on AIM and this is something that I would like to be able to see here. And the team will make sure that we get that squared away for you. And we're tracking either that competitor or that area. Okay, so let me talk about what we're looking at here. So I have 3 vendors and I purposely chose 3 pretty giant vendors that we know have lots of information in the analyst sphere. And these bars, you can hover over them and the sequence will always match the sequence of the way they're listed here. So the first one will always be Google, just because that's what I did. And by the way, I told you that anytime around where I think there's something important and you want to follow along with your own browser, that now could be a good time to get yourself dialed in, just letting you know. So from here, I can actually dig around and look for really anything that I want right here from this graph. I actually chose to dig into this November since I saw a big bump, and I've already loaded this page. So when I dug into November and I clicked on Microsoft, it actually gives me kind of like a little dossier of all of the mentions that we were able to derive some type of sentiment. And I can actually see that grouped day by day. I can click in and see further. So I told you that I wanted to also share some ways that I've been working with this AIM with a specific one of our clients. And we do lots of reporting. And I actually use AIM to show this cross-section of sentiment plus share of voice, right? So every time we're able to identify a content that has some type of sentiment, we sort of put that in this sort of share a voice sort of graphing, right? Then it's not just wanting to see what are the total positives, the total volume, all of this, but what are some key things? So what we'll do is we'll actually review this content and find things that could have an insight. right? So Microsoft Teams is an excellent solution for synchronizing distributed teams and improving collaboration. That might be something that I want to take further. And oopsie, here we go. And if I wanted to do that, of course, I timed out. I wanted to make sure that we didn't have to, let's see here, we'll go here. We can have that, and then let me just dig in here. Sorry. Let me go back over here. I'm gonna go to my influencer group. Sorry, everyone. All right. I'm just going to grab this one. So let's pretend that actually, this is something kind of nice as well about the vision for the future. I can actually create an insight. So the way that I've been using the report for one of our customers is identifying sort of what are some of the drivers of trends, highlighting some positives and neutrals, right, to provide some context for the the overall sort of graph here. So let me go back here and talk a little bit about the areas underneath this. So we all know that we focus on specific firms, right? And so we actually group these sentiments by firms. So let's say you really want to dig into specific firm. Actually, probably easier for me to go into this view so I don't have to tab across. I can actually see some more information here and get to where I want to go. So for my Gartners, right, maybe I want to dig in and see where the positive is, right? I can come over here. This is going to actually load up the share of voice for the Gartner analysts along these three companies. And then I can dig in to any one of these scores and decide whether or not I want to track that as a insight, right? And that would go into my insights area. All right. Switching back up here, you may even want to say, well, Crystal, I'm really interested in this, but only for my core analysts, right? So I've got this blockchain tier 1 group. I've got this ARInsights group. Let's see what we've got here. And now we can look for my core analysts, what the data looks like. And these are all just strategies for you to sort of look at the total data, dive in based off of your core analyst or your core relationship with a firm. All right. So here we go. Ray was the only analyst in my group here, and I can click in to get deeper into what he's saying and the sentiment and decide what to do there as well. Tracking back over here, if you want to just look at all of the analysts, you can certainly do that. I can expand this page and look here. And so there have been times where, like, if I see some sort of mixed stuff like this, I'll even screenshot this to be able to share with the client. If Stephanie was a core analyst and there was some content across a competitive landscape, to be able to provide that summary and sentiment across that view. So it's crickets in the chat. If anyone has any questions, or if you'd like me to go over something in this AIM, I find it incredibly useful. I don't know about you. Melissa, no, you don't need 2 months more training on this part. I recommend that you all just go and click around. It is so easy to navigate. You just click. and it can be really insightful to sort of see this information all together. And Jennifer, the request to be able to export this graph noted. I know a person. Will definitely get that request. I find this to be really, really informative. And like I said, I'm actually providing this an executive summary for a client that we work closely with. And sometimes we find validation of what we already knew. Sometimes we'll find some interesting things like an analyst wasn't thrilled with an acquisition that a competitor did, right? And there were sort of mixed reviews, and it wasn't just a quick and easy way to identify those types of things. Um, I would love to hop on a call, and I think Trish, you can drop a link, a scheduling link that actually has everyone on the CX team's availability, and find a time that works for you. And one of us will make sure that we are right there, ready to chat with you about how you can make AIM a part of your process. Okay, so we do have some questions. Do we weigh vendor positions in Magic Quadrants differently, or is it all text-based? I wish I knew who asked those questions. I guess we need to not allow anonymous. We don't actually weigh the different content types differently. I would love to talk to you a little more about what you're thinking with our product team. Um, I do know we are having conversations about the differences in major evaluations versus, other research or other types of publications like overall in our product. And so naturally that could have an impact to this as well. Um, oh, hi Brenda. I'd love to talk to you more about this. Thank you. We always get our best and most informed ideas from you all, so thank you. And then can you make it view by vertical information or technology topics? Sounds like a really great enhancement request, and it makes me think about how we augment things in our traditional share of voice report, where we say we're looking for this specific keyword or topic. So that sounds like this could be a great way to make this even more valuable. Brenda, I don't know if that was you as well. If it was, thank you. If it wasn't, you can ping us to talk about that a little bit more as well. So if those are all the questions that we have live right now, I wanted to move into one final thing, and it's just something that we'd started last year, just about some other things that are new in Architect. So I want to make sure, since you're spending this time with us, that you don't miss out on any of the other great things that are going on. The first thing we want you to know is that we do intend to build more AI tools in Architect. And because we know that your data and your internal policies are really important, I want you to know that you can actually pick your own AI model. If you are a site administrator, and am I a site administrator? Oh, that's interesting. I'm not a site administrator. Oh, yes, I am. Okay. If I am a site administrator, I can go into this site admin, and it says AI model settings. And there are today 3. So this is going to be the AI that's used on anything that touches your data. And so today, that is our AI toolkit that is on its way to be expanding. So if as you move along your journey of using AI in Architect, you want to make sure that if you have a preferred model, you go ahead and select. The default is right here with the OpenAI ChatGPT. I hope I am not saying any falsehoods there. I believe that is the case. But if you do have a requirement, make sure you set that or have your site admin set that. If you're like, wait, Crystal, we have a model that is our preferred that isn't here, let's talk. We want to make sure that we give you the best tools possible. The other thing that I very slyly slipped in there is a chat widget. I know email is the way that we've interacted for so many years. I want you to know that that's not the only way. If you want a more dynamic experience, you can actually send a message right here. You may see that I've been sending you some messages through Architect to make sure you're not missing anything. So you can ask a question. By the way, yesterday I asked a question that says, hey, what are the new things in Architect? And it actually gave me the list that I'm using today to tell you what are the new things in Architect. So I thought that was a really neat thing. If you're ever curious, you can do this. So there is our AI agent telling me exactly what's new in Architect. If you come here and you're like, I don't want to talk to an AI agent, don't worry. If you click talk to a person, that's going to go to probably your favorite CX person who may start with the name Eric. There's two of those on our team. So please use the in-app chat. I think it's a quicker way of getting your answers, and the AI agent is pretty good. The other thing I wanted to let you know is this year we have actually, I'm going to pull up an analyst profile, given you the ability to create custom fields on an analyst profile, something people have asked for a long, long time. So I wanted to make sure that you know that you can do that. This is a site admin feature, and you can include the site sort of custom fields in briefing books. You can also filter for your custom fields. The custom fields will always be at the bottom in your sort of filters right here, and then filter for them. So for those that, really want to put in special information, I want you to know that Architect is really your way whenever you want, and all of that information is filterable, exportable, and all the things that you would expect it to be, considering it's your data. All right. So thank you everyone for your time. If there are any other questions, happy to field those. Oh, I think we have one more. Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Happy to show you where the selector is. So if you're a site admin, you'll go to site admin, and then click site admin again. And that's going to take you to this page right here. And then it says AI model settings. Great. With that being said, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. I hope that we are dialed in on our dashboard and really excited about turbocharging your use of AIM, incorporating that in your analysis, in your ability to um, understand and sort of wrap your heads around all of the data that's coming out of Architect. And yeah, let us know if you need anything. And there is a link in the chat. Looking forward to speaking with you all soon. Bye.